If you missed your favorite show or interview, visit episodes on our website at theworldtoday.news. Our live shows are also on X, Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, Kick, and Twitch. Now there really is no reason to miss out on anything on theworldtoday.news.
For The World Today, this is James O'Neill. Far-right Ukrainian MP Andrei Parubi, killed in Lviv on Saturday, had long been accused of fueling civil war and extremism. Ex-diplomat Andrei Telizhenko told RT. Parubi, former Rada speaker and Maidan leader, co-founded the neo-Nazi Social National Party and allegedly ordered mass shelling in Donbass. Telizhenko claimed he coordinated sniper fire during the 2014 Maidan coup and covered up the Odessa massacre that killed 42 activists. Linked to the U.S.-based Jamestown Foundation, Parubi was accused of organizing, arming, and transporting militants. Supporters insist he collaborated closely with Western interests. Russian President Vladimir Putin arrived in Tianjin for a 4-day trip to China, beginning with the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit hosted by Xi Jinping. The SCO will address security, energy, AI, green development, and adopt a declaration with a 2035 strategy. Putin will then travel to Beijing on September 2nd for talks with Xi on economic and security issues, including Ukraine and U.S. relations. On September 3rd, he will attend World War II victory commemorations and hold about 10 bilateral meetings, including with leaders of India, Turkey, and Iran. The U.S. Commerce Department has revoked special authorizations allowing Samsung, SK Hynix, and Intel to import semiconductor equipment for use in China, forcing them to apply for licenses within 120 days. The decision, published in the Federal Register, ends a verified end-user program that eased licensing burdens. Washington says licenses will permit maintenance but not capacity expansion. Seoul urged stability for supply chains, while Beijing vowed retaliation. The move hit U.S. suppliers Applied Materials, Lam Research, and KLA, whose shares fell amid ongoing U.S.-China tariff tensions. French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot declared that Greenland is not for sale during a visit to Nuuk, condemning U.S. President Donald Trump's calls for American jurisdiction over the Arctic territory. Barrot stressed that France and Europe support Greenland's sovereignty and Denmark's autonomy, criticizing Washington's approach as undermining allies rather than fostering global freedom. His remarks followed reports of Trump-linked covert influence campaigns in Greenland and echoed President Emmanuel Macron's earlier rejection of U.S. ambitions. Denmark recently summoned the U.S. envoy for talks. Barrot's trip, including a visit to a French naval vessel, underscored European solidarity with Greenland. President Trump announced he will issue an executive order requiring voter ID in all federal elections, repeating his call for paper ballots and limiting mail-in voting to the ill and military. Trump previously ordered proof of citizenship for voter registration, a move partly blocked by courts, with appeals ongoing. He also backs the stalled SAVE Act and state-level GOP redistricting efforts. While critics argue his executive orders exceed presidential authority, Trump says they safeguard against fraud and restore confidence in elections ahead of the 2026 midterms. Newly revised German government data show Mohammed, across 19 spellings, is the most common first name among welfare recipients, with nearly 40,000 entries. Michael, with 24,600, and Ahmad, with 20,600, followed, while Elena was the only female name in the top 10. Germany's unemployment reached 6.4% in August, with over 3 million jobless and 5.42 million receiving benefits, 48% of them foreigners, compared to 19.6% in 2010. The findings fueled debate over migration and integration, bolstering the right-wing AfD party, now Germany's most popular in polls, though classified as an extremist entity by intelligence officials. Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Richard Tice, revealed Reform Council will fight to expel immigrants.
But you won't tell us where you're going to put them.
They will be remote. That's what we will clearly say.
This has been James O'Neill for The World Today.
If you missed your favorite show or interview, visit episodes on our website at theworldtoday.news. Now there really is no reason to miss out on anything on theworldtoday.news.
And great to have your company again on this, it's a Labor Day in the holiday in the US, winding up a lovely Monday off, a couple of barbecues, cookouts maybe, out for dinner with some friends and relatives or just family, and hopefully their friends. In Australia, it's Tuesday morning, and we're off to work or at work at the moment. And other parts of the world, well, you're most likely in bed except in New Zealand, although they do get up at the crack of midday, maybe. Big show today, talking to Martin Sieff about the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. And many of you would know what the Shanghai Cooperation Organization is, which he'll explain to us. Martin Sieff is a former chief foreign correspondent for the Washington Times and former chief news analyst and managing editor international affairs for United Press International. Received 3 Pulitzer Prize nominations for international reporting and published 7 books on modern history and international affairs. He has served as an adjunct professor of transnational threats at Bay Atlantic University in Washington, D.C. Martin, thanks for joining us. Can you tell us what the Shanghai Cooperation Organization is? We have Martin frozen at the moment, so no, he's still there. Martin, you're not hearing us at the moment, which is a great start to the show. If you push your button, he's disappeared now. So we'll try Martin in a second because we are going to talk about the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. And Shanghai Cooperation Organization is a pretty interesting organization. Perhaps, Martin, are you there? No, what we might do is just go to a quick commercial break, Cam, and see if we can get back Martin. This is The World Today.
Emma, did you hear?
Todd's in the hospital.
Who's Todd? He got a collapsed lung from vaping. He thought it was cool.
Not cool.
Promise you won't vape, Emma. It can lead to a lifelong addiction, and we can't be friends if your lungs collapse.
Bogus.
Wacky sitcom teens aren't the best people to talk to your kid about vaping.
Hey, you got a minute?
You are. Start the conversation with your child about vaping today.
A lot of my friends told me that I wasn't going to be able to do it. You don't need to start out with a teenager because they've had all these things that they've gone through.
Could we give him the things he needed to be a successful adult?
What parent isn't worried about, what am I not doing right? What am I not doing enough?
That's my son.
My dad showcased a sense of love that I never had before.
I had a rough time, but I saw that even though the way I was acting, they didn't push me away.
She says that we're her heroes, but she's also mine.
I've had 3 other mother figures in my life, but only one of them has taught me how a mother loves.
How you guys raised me is absolutely amazing. And I really, really appreciate that.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
If you don't have a smoke alarm in your bedroom, by the time a fire burns through your door to activate your smoke alarm, it will be too late. Install smoke alarms in your bedrooms today.
If you missed your favorite show or interview, visit episodes on our website at theworldtoday.news. Our live shows are also on X, Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, Kick, and Twitch. Now there really is no reason to miss out on anything on theworldtoday.news.
Makers are facing more traffic.
When we're on the go, it's easy to go into our own world. Keep your mind on the road.
Our beautiful world is changing, withering, dying by the hands of those who don't value nature, even though we all depend on it for life itself. But there is hope. Together with caring friends, the Nature Conservancy can restore our lands, heal our waters, and save our wildlife with big solutions only nature can provide. But every day we lose more of the places we love, and we urgently need to save endangered lands, waters, and wild species. The actions we take today will determine the tomorrow we leave to our children and grandchildren. the water they drink, the air they breathe, the beauty they experience. To learn more about how you can help protect and conserve our beautiful world, visit nature.org today.
Asthma is a growing problem, especially among children. Asthma affects the quality of life for millions like me every single day. My name is Chris Draft, and I have asthma. And I've spent more than a decade in the NFL tackling asthma on and off the field. Join me in the EPA in helping people control their asthma. Asthma is a lung condition that can be controlled through medication and by avoiding things that can make it worse. 3 steps are the solution to controlling asthma. Step 1, talk to a doctor. Step 2, make a plan. And step 3, get rid of things that can make it worse. Asthma can be tackled. For more information on asthma, log on to epa.gov/asthma.
We're today's News Talk, the world today.
Good. And back again, just ironing out a few gremlins right now. I'm sure there's festivities happening in New York, and Martin was last seen dancing on tables.
Naturally.
Martin and Sieff, thank you for joining us. Can you tell us about what the Shanghai Cooperation Organization is, please?
Very happily, Mike. I've been covering it for a quarter of a century since they started. On a very interesting date in June 2001, the very same day, it started with 6 member states, 2 of them world powers, China and Russia. It's now risen to 10 member states, including such major nuclear world powers, additionally, as India, Pakistan, and Iran. Even before they joined, it was the most powerful and is the most powerful potential military alliance in the history of the world. It is far larger and more powerful and has far more larger number of major military and thermonuclear powers than NATO does. It has the largest industrial base in the world, which is China. It has the largest rising and expanding industrial base in the world, which is India. It has the greatest thermonuclear power in the world, which is Russia. It has not come from nowhere. It has been quietly, gradually, but remorselessly and systematically growing for the last 25 years. It dwarfs NATO. It is attracting member states, and not just member states, every major nation in Asia and in the Middle East, including Iran, and our ally and longtime NATO member since I think 1955, Turkey, is attending this summit. When I say attending, I do not mean that they have friendly diplomats or foreign ministers attending. They have prime ministers and presidents attending. Malaysia is attending. Even a small little island historically close to us, the Maldive Islands in the middle of the Indian Ocean, are attending this summit. This is the most powerful alliance in the world, and it dwarfs NATO.
So what is the purpose of this summit?
There are many purposes, and they're all public. They're out to advance the cooperation in energy development. They're out to advance the cooperation in developing economic integration and cooperation across the heartland of Eurasia in places where the United States Navy and the United States Air Force cannot intervene to disrupt them. But most of all, they are going to be talking about the ongoing war in Ukraine, Russia's confrontation with the United States, China's confrontation with the United States, and the close cooperation between these two great superpowers and between their leaders, who have now met more times than Franklin Roosevelt and Winston Churchill met during World War II when they established the Anglo-American Grand Alliance. The relationship between President Xi and President Putin is a powerful and ongoing one. The few Western outlets which are now belatedly waking up to the fact of the summit are saying, oh, this is remarkable. Putin has broken the isolation we've kept him in since the Ukraine war began in 2022. No, That is not true. Putin was never isolated. He was in the SCO as a close ally of China and of India all along. And it's only now that many of our own ostriches in Washington and London, with their heads in the sand, are belatedly waking up to this fact. And of course, in Australia, you need to wake up to this fact too, because the ANZUS alliance cannot protect you from this.
Yeah, it's interesting. I saw a pic yesterday, in fact, with Xi, Putin and Modi. And if you want to see friendship and diplomacy, there was a great example of that. It sort of puts to shame, doesn't it, how the West does it or Europe does it at the moment. Here we have a summit that is built on, obviously, trust, friendship, diplomacy. They're three of the things that are missing from NATO, from the EU, from the UK, all the alliances on the West. There isn't a whole lot of trust and friendship, is there?
So true. We have a splintering alliance. I noticed also the other big breaking news story that's trending with the Tianjin summit is the latest row between the European Union and the United States because of President Trump's ham-handed and very inept effort to try and seize full control of Greenland. Now, President Trump was actually a very talented baseball player in his youth. Before he went to the Wharton School of Business, where he learned a lot of very useful and successful things, he really did have the prospect for playing professional Major League Baseball in the United States, I think for the Pittsburgh Pirates in those days. But President Trump, therefore, of all people, should understand how he and the Europeans too, we are committing unforced errors. The great sin in baseball was the great Casey Stengel, the most legendary manager the New York Yankees ever had, said, baseball games are not won, they are lost. And they are lost by errors. If you don't make unforced errors that you don't have to make, you will win every game in baseball, which is a very hard thing to do. And yet we are making one unforced error after another. When the EU's Commissioner for External or Foreign Affairs, or whatever they're calling it these days, from Estonia no less, and she really did not learn much diplomacy there, I think, Kaja Kallas went recently to Beijing. She insulted her hosts by lecturing them on what they needed to do to meet European standards on human affairs and, of course, on energy. And the economic record of the European Union on energy compared with China, which is consistently raising the standard of living of 1.4 billion human beings to unprecedented levels. By contrast, in Europe, we're slitting our own throats by following that silly Swedish girl, Ms. Thunberg's belated fantasies on energy development. And she's a total scientific and energy illiterate. And yet we can look at Germany, where unemployment is now at record levels, or Britain, where the last steel-making concern has just closed, and where Japanese and Chinese investors have pulled out of British steel and British investments because they can't afford the energy costs anymore because of these mad green fantasies, which are not rational science and therefore are not being followed in the marketplace. And China itself is the world leader in green, sustainable energy development, but they do so in a balanced and scientifically literate and sensible manner. So we have so much to learn from the SCO nations.
Yeah, and we do. But it seems also that the powerful members of the SCO, such as India, Russia and China, they're not. They wouldn't be on the Christmas card list of the US. Why are we doing this? Why is the US antagonizing? Someone on one comment on a post just today, in fact, it says, when an elephant, bear and dragon are busy in a tango, a Minnie Mouse must stay in its hole. And that would describe the US beautifully, wouldn't it? It is the Minnie Mouse here. It is the antagonist because it is antagonizing China, Russia, and India, and it's trying to wield its big stick. But if you're a Minnie Mouse, you haven't really got a big stick. How can the US and the three major, three largest, I suppose, countries of the SCO, India, China, and Russia, how can they mend it? How can the US mend it so that instead of being an antagonizer, it works as part of a group collective aiming for the same thing?
There needs to be, it's much broader than conventional Republican versus Democrat politics. It was even worse under Joe Biden. At least President Trump speaks to President Putin, but he's losing India. And he's losing India by doing exactly what you said, Mike. Again, another baseball unforced error. Bullying, lecturing. Americans have done this much more for the past 80 years than they are ever willing to admit. And this has been true of Democratic administrations as much as Republican ones. We have erratic policies. First, President Trump is in favor of building a pipeline to Canada. And you have to work very hard in the United States to make either an enemy or a skeptical, independent, hostile critic of Canada, or of Mexico, but they managed to do that effortlessly in both cases. US policies are erratic and extreme and zigzag. And this is true of both Republican policies and Democratic policies. They're at odds with each other. They cannot coordinate. If you look at India, India is the largest democracy in the history of humanity and a very successful one. They have many problems still, who doesn't? But they've come an incredibly long way with their democratic system. And if you look at the way they handle their foreign policy, it is bipartisan. Whether Congress on the moderate soft left gets in, or Mr. Modi's party and allies on the moderate right get in, there is continuity in foreign policy between the two, and there is a professional diplomatic foreign service. When they appoint ambassadors and chief envoys to go to Moscow or to Washington or to Beijing, they choose serious, dignified people. What we choose is the big political benefactors and ignoramuses in both our parties, who are embarrassments, or ideologues like Michael McFaul, who spent his time in Moscow tweeting insults about the president of the most powerful thermonuclear power on the planet. This is infantile and very dangerous. It's not the way Henry Kissinger, or for that matter, Jim Baker, or John Kerry did diplomacy. You could argue and criticize many of their policies, but they understood the importance of continuity, of communication, of dignity, and of respect for the leaders of major powers. Right now, Secretary Rubio, I think, is a very fine Secretary of State, but he's constrained by the erratic nature, not just of the personality of the president, but of the American political system, and of the mistakes that his ghastly predecessors under Biden as Secretary of State and National Security Advisor made before him. We have a perfectly able and experienced and fine Secretary of State in the United States, but he isn't even being advised by serious people who are still available in large numbers in Washington.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Do you think the US could ever be a part of the SCO, or was that just wishful thinking? Because if they were, you'd have to really tie down Lindsey Graham, for example, and the other rhinos, all the other people there that are, one, hate Russia, two, hate China, three, hate everything except themselves. So for the US to become part of the SCO, I would imagine there would be a requirement that the administration act like a government and not a bunch of screaming schoolgirls. Will that ever happen?
Exactly.
But will that ever happen? Do you think they'll ever get their act together so that then they could be accepted if they wanted to, and they should be part of the SCO?
No one will trust them, because I think you could have the president theoretically could get his act together. He's capable of doing it, but he needs to have better and wiser advisors around him. He is a fine Secretary of State. And Mr. Witkoff is actually doing serious heavy lifting, but he is not a trained diplomat. He's a businessman. as my friend, the great military analyst Colonel Doug McGregor says, Americans look on diplomacy like cooking in a microwave oven. President Putin and President Xi and the leaders of India recognize that diplomacy is a matter of slow cooking, of patience. This is the way Henry Kissinger did it. It took 4 years, virtually all of President Nixon's first term, before President Nixon and his Secretary of State, Henry Kissinger, were able to build a lasting alliance with China. The Chinese did not trust them at first. They had to prove they were capable of trust, and also they were capable of being re-elected, that they were in it for the long term. President Trump, I think, has that second capability, but he has to show that he is not volatile, that he is a reliable friend, and that he will not continue to lap sanctions on people and unpredictable tariffs as opposed to negotiated tariffs that do not come as a surprise. Nixon actually failed this with allies, with Japan. He made U-turns in the economic sphere, even when he knew better in the national security and diplomatic sphere. But we have lost that sense, that capability totally. So could it happen? Theoretically, yes. I think it is more likely to happen under a President Vance. It is not remotely going to happen under a President Newsom, who shows no signs of higher cognitive capabilities in his brain at all, as clearly you have recognized as well long ago, Mike. Very clear. But in theory, it could happen. But we would have to do something which, as you know, I'm originally Irish. And there is something that Britain used to have so much of, and the Irish have tried to develop in recent generations too in the world field, and that is patience, consistency, reliability. Even when you have to make a U-turn, you make it for the ages or for a generation or two. You're not going to reverse it 5 minutes later when the next commercial break comes along. But this is the way the Americans do it. As Colonel McGregor says, you've got to get away from quick cooking instant meals in diplomacy and national security. It can't work. You'll blow up your microwave cooker. You'll blow up your country. You'll blow up a superpower.
On the front page of the New York Post, it says India's leader Modi cozies up to Putin and Xi Jinping at the Shanghai summit after he was spurned by Trump. Is Trump with his and I call it bully boy actions, his bullying actions on the international stage with that big stick? Is he actually pushing them together and making them a stronger alliance?
Yes, but Biden was doing it before him, and so was Obama. He's actually doing it less than them. We should not. President Trump is making plenty of huge mistakes on the world stage. But we should not blame him for the piss-ignorant, embarrassing, total incompetence of the total dead, the original walking dead man himself, Joe Biden, or his people. And this business about losing India was never ours to lose. The oldest, most venerable alliance in the world is, of course, NATO, as we're always told. The second oldest, most venerable and most stable alliance, which not one American in 100,000 appears to be aware of, is the Russia-India alliance, which was established between India and the Soviet Union in 1955. India was never ours to lose. Indian diplomats are very charming and very skillful and very able and consistent on behalf of their country. The standard of diplomacy of Indian diplomats, I would say, as well as Chinese and Russian ones, is infinitely higher than the appalling clowns that neocon and green-loving illiterate clowns that Hillary Clinton and her ilk have stuffed the US Foreign Service with over the past 20 years. India has always maintained its alliance with Russia. Indian cruise missiles fly 3 times faster than American cruise missiles because they are built in joint ventures with a Russian technology, which India has never shared with the United States. For all this talk about India being one of our allies, India is part of the Quartet diplomatic grouping, along with Japan and the United States. And I think Australia is the fourth. But the point is, it's an informal grouping. It is not an alliance. India's primary source of protection in the world has been the strategic alliance with the Soviet Union and with then Russia, which has never wavered, whether under the communist system or under President Yeltsin or under President Putin. And you never see a single mention of this in the Senate or in the New York Times or on PBS or among any of the other arrogant, utterly ignorant, embarrassingly incompetent, empty loons in America.
Can you just tell me why the UN is so important? I mean, I'm a great critic of the UN, but it has a role to play. Can you tell us what you think its role is?
I worked briefly at the UN in 1985, and I loved working there. The delicatessen was great, and the people were very nice, and they were competent. But the UN is not a world government. No government has ever allowed the UN to remotely approximate a world government. On the other hand, it is a clearinghouse for a lot of international cooperation among the one world government people that we don't know. And our ignorance about what the UN is and where it is total. Everybody thinks the UN is the public puppet show that takes place in the full glare of world publicity at the magnificent building where I worked, where the deli in my day was very good, no doubt still is, out there looking out over the East River in Manhattan. No. The main work of the UN is done in Geneva. There are many other places as well, but in Geneva alone, in the old Palais des Nations, which was built in the 1920s and 30s to house the doomed League of Nations, they have 6,000 conferences a year, usually multi-day conferences going on. So that's an average of, 20 conferences a day simultaneously being held, with thousands of senior people from different countries, different NGOs, as well as governments. What are they doing there? We really don't know. I don't know. Do you know, Mike? Does anyone know? Where's the monitoring of it going on? It's in Switzerland. The Swiss are very happy to ask no questions. There's no accountability. There's no transparency. We simply don't know. But where the UN is useful in New York is precisely because it is a forum to gauge world opinion and meet other leaders. Winston Churchill, hardly a peacemonger himself, famously said, jaw, talking, as you're letting me do here, is far superior to war. Jaw is better than war. And that is the great benefit of the United Nations for the last 80 years, and it is priceless, because it is far better to talk hypocrisies and empty nonsense as a cover for diplomacy, or to let off steam, rather, and to gauge what nations are feel and what their leaders feel and what their publics feel, which we see expressed repeatedly at the General Assembly of the UN every year. So, yes, no, the UN is not a world government. Yes, it is a cover for all these dubious things, and some of them, no doubt, admirable, and many of them not admirable, that we haven't a clue that are going on. But they're not going on in New York at the UN. They're going on at the UN complex at the Palais des Nations in Geneva, where nobody ever pays attention to them. But it's much better to have the UN General Assembly meeting every year in peace than what the alternatives would be.
Yeah, Martin Sieff, it's always a pleasure to talk to you in regards to world affairs, and your take on it is illuminating. I was interested that your time at the UN, the first thing you talked about was the cafeteria, so obviously they were very good.
It was the one institution that worked flawlessly, Mike.
Which is, considering it's a UN, well done to the cafeteria. Martin Sieff, if somebody wants to find out more and to support you, how do they do that?
Link onto my seminars on YouTube, buy my books, which should be freely, when I say freely available to purchase at moderate prices, of course, on Amazon.com. And I'm also now a regular contributor on Realist Review, so also online. So I'll also hit me there.
You're a very busy man, but I really appreciate it, and we do here at the World Today. Thank you very much for your time. I'll let you get back to the wife and to the dog. This is the World Today.
It's early evening in Lochgelly, and as many as 100 young people gathered in the park. Some of the local residents see the young people as a problem, and while many people simply avoid the park on Friday evening, the Salvation Army has been taking a different approach.
Some young people are out on the street because they don't feel safe at home, or they may have parents that are working all the time and they're home alone a lot.
Hello, how are you? Good.
We see so many young people in crisis. We see so many young people turn into alcohol and drugs, and it's because there's not enough support.
We come and shower today for something to do with our friends.
They like to have a laugh, they like to joke around.
Are you okay? Be careful.
And the conversations that we have surrounding school and family, alcohol, drug use, can then go on to, okay, so how can we support you?
Throughout the UK and Ireland, the Salvation Army has been recruiting and training detached youth workers. But youth workers and the resources they need are scarce. Local authority funding has been drastically cut in recent decades, and spending on young people's services is only a quarter of what it was at its peak. All this shows the importance of the Salvation Army's work.
She won't tell anyone because she'll forget in like 2 seconds.
Our aims are to build relationships, to get to know young people, to be a constant in their lives, to be a safe adult, because not all young people have a safe adult.
It's not what we're here for, it's actually...
So if we can be that constant in their lives, during the ups, during the downs of their lives, that's a major thing.
Telling it as it is. Today's News Talk, the World Today.
We're touching on India in this hour. I spoke to Martin Sieff about India and the Shanghai conference I had there, cooperation organisation conference I had there, or summit, and headlines in the New York Post is that India's Modi has cozied up to Putin and Xi because of the spurning by Donald Trump, all sorts of things. India is a very powerful nation, and is regarded generally as an ally and friend of all nations on the planet. Professor Šumit Ganguly is Senior Fellow Program Director of Hoover Institution in Stanford University. Thanks for joining us, Professor, but could you tell us what are the pillars of the US-India relationship?
The US-India relationship is now based upon at least 3 different pillars. First, there's a defense relationship that has been forged over the past 20 years or so, and India has purchased close to $20 billion worth of military equipment from the United States. India is also a participant in the Quad, which involves Australia, Japan, the United States, and India. In addition to that, India has an economic relationship until these tariffs went into effect. The United States was India's largest economic partner. And third, there is a significant Indian diaspora in the United States, about 5 million people, or 1.6% of America's population. But bear in mind, they are mostly professional, and they contribute as much as 6% of America's tax base.
It's incredible. I'm probably a fan of Donald Trump within his borders. Outside of those, I think he's floundering terribly so. His big stick approach, and that's what it is. You'll do as we tell you, because we're the greatest nation on the earth. Big, beautiful nation. That's what we are. And we're going to put these big, beautiful tariffs and wave our stick unless you do what we tell you. It's a massive failure, isn't it?
I'm afraid so. I think it is actually undermining the US India relationship, which has been so carefully constructed over the last 2 to 3 decades and with considerable bipartisan support. Now, all that is being undermined within a matter of months, and I hope that this precipitous decline in US India relations can somehow be arrested.
Do you think maybe Donald Trump, and if he's listening or watching at the moment, he'd probably fall off his throne because he is king of the universe? Do you think Donald Trump should take a lesson from Xi and also Putin and others and Modi to see how you should behave on the international stage? Because it is obvious that the trust and friendship and diplomacy that has been displayed at the recent SCO summit has been one of excellence. Yet the relationship with Donald Trump and all of those leaders has been that of has been lacking and wanting terribly, hasn't it?
I'm afraid so, except that the SCO summit, and particularly the presence of these three behemoths, Russia, China, and India, really reflects a convergence of temporary interests. These interests are not enduring. Russia, unfortunately for itself, is a declining power. Its economy is steadily shrinking. It's lost over 1 million men under arms thanks to Putin's ill conceived invasion of Ukraine. Whatever might have been his motivations, Russia's also become a junior partner to China, and China and India have important differences, particularly owing to the border dispute. So, for the moment, these three powers are papering over their differences because of their common troubles with Donald Trump and his administration and its policies.
Who's the at the moment? Who's the one with the greatest takeaway out of this? Is it China, Russia, or India?
Oh, there is little or no question in my mind that China is the clear cut winner of this conclave. China has demonstrated that it can convene major powers and minor powers also, including various Central Asian states and Pakistan, can get them to come at a moment's notice. And there is a profound anti American tenor to all of this that exists as a leitmotif in these conversations. So it's this common distrust of the Trump administration that's bringing these individuals and countries together. But I would submit that the glue holding them is not that strong.
Even though a previous guest, Martin Sieff, said that Russia and India have had since I think 1935, they've had a relationship. Surely that would hold Russia and India in good stead.
Actually, I disagree with him to some degree because the relationship has seen its vicissitudes over the years. A relationship was forged with Russia by New Delhi shortly after Stalin's death, because Stalin was extremely distrustful of India and, in fact, had referred to India's first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, as a running dog of imperialism. So Russia's Soviet foreign policy only changed after the demise of Stalin. And during the Cold War, India and Russia, the Soviet Union, had differences. And it was only around the early 1970s that they forged a genuine strategic partnership because of their common distrust of China and India's rather fraught relationship with the United States. That endured pretty much till the end of the Cold War. But then after that, Boris Yeltsin basically lost interest in India and turned mostly to Europe and the United States. In the last decade or so, the Indians have deftly sought to rebuild that relationship, and it's reliant upon the Russians providing advanced weaponry in the wake of the invasion of Ukraine, access to cheap oil, and on occasion diplomatic convergence on various multilateral matters. But bear in mind that much of this relationship, other than the Indian Cold War nostalgia, which does exist in New Delhi about the Soviet Union, much of this is transactional and to a degree fragile.
Donald Trump very enthusiastically has slumped tariffs on just about everybody. And we're waiting for one to be slapped on the moon, because that's about the only place he hasn't slapped a tariff on. Which industries with this, I'll call it a tariff imposition on India and its other allies, by the way, but just with India, which industries will suffer the most?
A host of industries are already suffering because of the uncertainty and the prospect of paying extraordinary duties on Indian goods going to the United States. In particular, jewelers. Any number of American retailers, particularly at the mid-level to the lower level, one finds in major shopping malls, are likely to be the most affected, because so much of diamonds and other jewelry are actually cut in India and also manufactured in India, and they had seen the United States as a steady, reliable market. Textiles will be another area which will be very badly hit, because Trump has imposed significantly lower duties on Bangladesh, Thailand, and Vietnam. And the Indians were actually making inroads into the American garment industry, garment retailing. And again, that's likely to grind to a halt, affecting thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Indian workers who were reliant on these factories where they are employed. Another area are likely to be auto parts. India supplies significant segments of automotive parts to American car manufacturers. This will also lead to a downturn. And finally, certain idiosyncratic little niche products. For example, I just read that India sells level bicycles to the United States, and those bicycle manufacturers had predicated their production on access to the American market. Suddenly having to switch elsewhere is going to be very difficult.
Yeah, I just find it incredible. And my wife, in fact, is in the fashion industry and speaks highly of India. What would India do, for example, with its in the fashion industry, as such as garments and material and stuff like that? Where do you think it would? Because it's respected worldwide. I would imagine most of the corners of the earth have been already not saturated, but targeted, and have them as clients. And to take away the US, I don't know whether you'd have other alternatives to go to fill the void with the US with its tariffs.
It's going to be very difficult. The Indians will obviously target Europe, and not just Western Europe, even the middle income countries of Eastern Europe, and they will probably try to broaden their footprint in the Australian market. But none of this is going to happen overnight. And secondly, it is going to be they're going to face tough competition from a host of countries in other parts of South and Southeast Asia.
It's interesting, a president who portrays himself as President Peace of the universe is creating a great divide throughout the world, and that's it doesn't go hand in hand with his version of himself. The oil that has been bought from by India from Russia, also that's gotten up the nose of the president too.
Yes, it has. But for the most part, that's a stated reason for his unhappiness. Because until about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, this was really not an issue. The president was well aware that India was buying Russian oil, refining it, and making it available on the global market, thereby actually tempering global oil prices. What piqued the president was Prime Minister Modi's staunch unwillingness to concede or to grant that the president might have played some role in fashioning a ceasefire between India and Pakistan in the wake of a intense 4-day conflict in early May of this year. And apparently, Modi, according to press reports, Modi even refused to take certain phone calls from Trump. And this genuinely got under Trump's skin, and which led him then to weaponize tariffs and use it as a cudgel against India. The issue of Russian oil is mostly a cover for his unhappiness with Modi over Modi's unwillingness to suggest that Trump is this extraordinarily able peacemaker and negotiator and thereby worthy of the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah, he's an interesting person, Donald Trump. I mean, I used to think he was pretty wild with his tweets in his first term. Thank God he's not going that wild on the tweets, but he is outdoing himself now with his flip-flopping. And I recall him saying that when Zelensky was there, and I don't agree with Zelensky at all, but however, he said, you must show us more respect. And that's what he's saying to the rest of the world. You must show me more respect. Respect works both ways, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. He's expecting deference from global leaders without wanting to make any concessions to them. And this approach, unfortunately, is going to backfire for the most part. It'll work with small countries, which are much more vulnerable. Their economies are exposed, and consequently, they're much more inclined to genuflect before Trump. It's not going to work with countries that are either regional powers or have aspirations to be great powers, such as India.
Do you think the warm relationship he has at the moment with Putin and Xi, do you think that's gotten up his nostrils too?
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. And as your previous commentator pointed out, that Trump is not paying much heed to the advice of people who actually know something about the subcontinent and its politics and its foreign policy, particularly Indian foreign policy. And that is entirely unhelpful from the standpoint of conducting a nuanced, thoughtful, subtle foreign policy towards India.
This is just a left field question for you. We used to talk about Trump as the savior of democracy, that for free speech and having you make your own decisions in regards to your life, and that was globally. Do you think Trump is more of a threat to democracy?
Yes and no. Anti-democratic forces have been gathering steam across the world independent of Trump, but Trump's embrace of strongmen and dictators certainly will not help the cause of democracy worldwide.
Trump's also hitting out at BRICS members. What's your views on that?
Well, he's unhappy with the BRICS because he sees them as a challenge to American dominance, and furthermore, some loose talk on the part of the BRICS to create a global alternative reserve currency has also piqued him no end.
Just on Donald Trump's tariffs, I mean, sure, he wants to make America great again, or the new Roman Empire at the start, not at the end of it, which is looking like it is at the end of it. The tariffs themselves, besides hurting other countries and their industries and their peoples, the tariffs themselves will also increase the price of goods, not services, but more goods, even services, within the US borders. This doesn't make any sense. So the question would be, are the tariffs a short-term thing, or are they meant to be there until the other country does exactly as the king has said? Because if they do that, prices will rise, won't they?
Oh, there's no question about it. Prices are already rising. One sees it at the grocery store. I live in Northern California, where all manner of fruits and vegetables, despite California's own agricultural bounty, comes from Mexico. And I've already noticed that prices of items like mangoes, which are not grown in California, are costing more at the grocery store. So I can absorb it because I have a middle class existence, but people who are at lower levels of the economic ladder are feeling the pinch.
Yeah, it's all very interesting. I don't know what we can do with Trump at the moment, but he is the president. Again, I think he's doing a fair job within the borders. Not perfect. Outside of those internationally, I think he's floundering greatly. Just a pleasure chatting with you, Professor. Professor Šumit Ganguly, sorry. A famous Indian cricketer has your last name.
Yes, he does indeed.
He's, can you play cricket?
I can, but I'm a very middling cricket player.
Yeah, I think the Indian team is just an amazing team. And I was watching the test series between England and India. And I thought, what a brilliant exhibition of cricket from both sides.
Yes.
Professor Šumit Ganguly, thank you very much for your time. This is The World Today. Thank you.